You open your phone. You find a product you like. You click buy. You never see a warehouse. You never touch the item. A stranger halfway across the world packs it and ships it straight to your door. You call this dropshipping. You think it's new. But the real answer is far stranger. This trick is not an internet invention. It is one of the oldest moves in human history. Long before there were servers or supply chains, there were people who made a living without ever owning the thing they sold. They just stood in the middle. And they made the middle profitable. Think about that for a second. What does it actually mean to sell something you don't own? 10,000 years ago, a farmer in Anatolia wanted a sharp black stone called obsidian. He didn't travel to the volcano where it came from. He didn't know how to mine it. Instead, someone else did that work for him, a trader who moved between villages, carrying goods he had never made and sometimes never even seen with his own eyes. Archaeologist Colin Renfrew traced these obsidian trade networks across the ancient Near East and found something remarkable. The stone moved hundreds of miles from its source, changing hands again and again, each trader adding a small markup before passing it along. No single person owned the whole supply chain. Everyone owned a piece of the movement. That's the first dropshipper. Not a person with a warehouse. A person with a relationship. Fast forward a few thousand years. The Silk Road stretches from China to the Mediterranean. Almost no merchant walked the entire route. Almost none of them warehoused silk, spices, or jade themselves. Goods passed through dozens of hands, each one a broker, each one taking a cut, each one betting that someone downstream would want what someone upstream had made. The system worked because trust traveled faster than goods did. A reputation could cross a border even when a person couldn't. Here's the question worth sitting with. Why would humans build entire economies around not owning things? Economist Ronald Coase asked a version of this question in 1937, and his answer still shapes how you shop today. Coase argued that businesses exist to reduce the cost of doing things yourself. Finding a supplier. Negotiating a price. Verifying quality. Every one of those steps costs time, money, or risk. A middleman doesn't just move goods. A middleman absorbs the messy parts of trust so you don't have to. You are not paying for the product. You are paying for someone else to handle the uncertainty. Your brain has always liked this deal. You didn't evolve to personally verify every transaction. You evolved to read faces, track reputations, and remember who kept their word. A trader who delivered last season earns the right to be trusted this season. That's not a shopping habit. That's a survival habit, repurposed for commerce. Now jump to the 20th century. Sears and JCPenney build massive mail-order catalogs, promising to deliver almost anything to almost anywhere, without you ever setting foot in a store. They can't stock every size, every color, every model. So a strange workaround appears. A company called CompuCard notices these giant fulfillment warehouses sitting mostly untapped, and it starts listing the exact same products in its own catalog, at a small markup, quietly asking the warehouse to ship directly to the customer. The department stores barely notice. A new kind of merchant has appeared. One who sells inventory it never touches. Here's the twist you didn't expect. The internet didn't invent this idea. It just made it faster. In 1979, an English inventor named Michael Aldrich connected a modified television to a computer through a phone line and let a person place an order from their living room. It was clunky. It was slow by any modern standard. But it proved something ancient traders already knew instinctively, that the exchange of trust could travel separately from the exchange of goods. 20 years later, a man named Nick Swinmurn wanted to sell shoes online but had no money to buy inventory. So he photographed shoes from local stores, listed them on a website, and only bought a pair after a customer had already paid for it. He lost money on almost every sale in the beginning. But he was testing something the Anatolian traders already knew. People will pay a stranger for the promise of delivery, long before that stranger owns a single thing. That website became Zappos. It became one of the most famous customer service companies in the world. And it grew out of the exact same instinct as a Bronze Age trade route: sell the connection first, and figure out the object later. Notice what hasn't changed in 10,000 years. You are still buying trust before you're buying a product. You just don't call it that anymore. There's a reason this model keeps reappearing, generation after generation, tool after tool. It isn't a loophole. It's a mirror of how human trade has always worked, stripped down to its rawest form. You give someone your belief that they'll follow through, and in exchange, they carry the risk of actually finding, holding, and shipping the thing you want. Every version of this, the Anatolian trader, the Silk Road broker, the mail-order catalog, the Shopify store, is really just an answer to the same problem. Nobody can make and hold everything themselves. Somebody has to stand in the middle. So the next time a package shows up at your door from a seller who never touched it, remember what you're actually witnessing. It isn't a hack. It isn't a shortcut invented in a dorm room or a Silicon Valley office. It's a 10,000-year-old agreement between strangers, running quietly underneath a UPS tracking number. You open your phone. You click buy. And without knowing it, you just did what humans have been doing since the first trader carried a stone he never mined, to a village he'd never call home.